Welcome back to the next session in our writing lessons for this week. So we are looking at how to write a non-chronological report all about the Olympic Games. Now, I'm going to start today's session with a few examples that we've been sent today, which is lovely. It's so nice to be able to sit and read your work, because obviously we're used to doing that in class. So thank you for sending your work through. So the first one is from Sebastian in 5JF. So thank you, Sebastian. Nice to see that you're working hard at home. Now, if you have a look, there's 2 paragraphs there. And the reason for that is because he has written 1 paragraph, and then the second one, the one in black, he has gone back and he has edited it and thought about how he can improve it and make it even better for the reader. So well done. Have you ever wondered where the Olympics began? Originating thousands of years ago in ancient Greece, the Olympics was created in honour of the king of gods, Zeus. This was in 776 BC. Every 4 years, athletes from around the globe unite in a city. The Olympics' everlasting legacy will affect many generations in the future because they will get into sports. Right, well, first of all, I absolutely love that phrase there, the Olympics' everlasting legacy, because that is what the Olympics is about. Although it only goes on for a few weeks, it's the everlasting legacy of getting people into sports and into the community spirit. So well done, love that phrase. You've got a lovely rhetorical question at the beginning to hook your reader in, and you've used lots of good vocab, so things like legacy and where was the other one? I've lost it now. Oh, unite, that was it. Unite a city. Absolutely brilliant. So well done. Thank you for sharing that. Now, if we look at the second piece, so this is Ashton from 5SU. Again, Ashton has done 2 paragraphs because he's done his first one and then he's gone back and he's thought about how he can edit and improve. So well done, Ashton. Have you ever wondered how the Olympics began? Originating in Olympia, the Olympics were made by the Greeks. It was held in the honour of Zeus, king of the gods. From that day, the legacy spread to almost 3,000 years all the way to now. It has united the world. Brilliant writing, well done. So again, love that you started with a rhetorical question there to hook the reader in. You've got some really nice vocab in there. So again, words like united, it has united the world, because that is what the Olympics is about. It's about bringing everybody together. I like the word again, legacy. So the legacy has spread. And honour is a nice one. It was held in the honour of Zeus. So well done. You've also used a nice timed verb there, from that day. So you've thought about how you're starting your sentences. So thank you, boys, for sending your work through. You've done an absolutely amazing job there. It's been a pleasure to read. Remember, if you want to share your work with us, either send it via Twitter, so get your parents to tweet us at Year 5 IJS, or you can send them to your class email addresses and we will try and include them on the next video. So in today's session, we are going to look at the next paragraph. So if I go down to my plan from the first session, we've done the introduction, we've talked about where it started, and now I'm going to think about the origin and the background, okay? Now to do this, I knew I wanted to talk about the fact that it started in Athens in 1896. I knew I wanted to talk about it being every 4 years in the summer, because I didn't mention that in my introduction. And I knew I wanted to talk about the countries that take part. But other than that, I didn't know a lot of information. So this is where, when you're doing a non-fiction text, you need to do some research. Now, because I'm such a nice teacher, I have put there for you the notes that I have made. So if you are doing the same paragraphs that I'm doing and you would like to use my notes, then there you go. Pause the video, take a picture, do what you need to do, that is fine. So I'm looking at the origin and background. I've kind of colour-coded them. So the first bit is all about where they started. So the original Olympics were banned in 393 AD by the Roman Emperor Theodosius. And in 1894, Pierre de Coubertin, if that's how you say it, founded the International Olympic Committee, the IOC. Now that is a break of just over 1,500 years. Okay, Now, the first modern Olympic Games was then held in 1896, where 14 countries took part with 241 athletes, and there were 43 events. And the biggest countries during that time were Greece, Germany, France, and Great Britain. Okay, so that's all about the first modern Olympic Games. I then wanted to talk about in my plan every 4 years. So I could just put that it started every 4 years, but I just wanted to find out a little bit more information. So they take place every 4 years in July and August, and they are the Summer Olympics. We also have the Winter Olympics and the Paralympics. And this I found really interesting, actually. So I do want to try and get this into my writing. Every 4-year period between each Olympic Games is known as an Olympiad. So the 2020 Games that are now being postponed to next year because of the coronavirus would have been the 32nd Olympiad since 1896, and they put them in Roman numerals. So if you can see on my mind map, I've put in Roman numerals what 32 would be as well, because that's how they represent it. And the last thing I want to talk about is the countries that take part. So there would have been this year 206 countries competing. So next year there'll be 206 different countries or nations competing. Only 5 countries have been represented at every modern Summer Games. That's Greece, Great Britain, France, Switzerland, and Australia. And did you know the host nation, so whoever it is that's hosting it that year, is actually chosen 7 years ahead of the Games. So quite a bit in advance, which I didn't realise it was that far in advance. So they are my notes. I'm going to use those. I'm not necessarily going to write everything down because that's a lot of information, but there's information there that I can use. Okay. So the first thing I need to do is I'm going to give it a heading. I've decided to call mine the origins of the games because I thought origin and background, which is what I had in my plan, sounded a bit boring. So I thought the origins of the games is what I'm going to use. Now, the first thing I want to do is I want to talk about probably this top bit in blue, don't I? So when the first ones were, I also kind of want to get in there about the Roman emperor banning them, because I think that'd be a nice starting point. So maybe something simple like, what about the original? Oh, I'm going to take that underline. The original Greek, now remember capital letters for Greek, games were banned in 393 AD by the Roman Emperor, and this will have to spell it properly, Theodosius, and I'm just going to check that, Theodosius, full stop. There you go. So a short, sweet sentence just to start my paragraph there. So the original Greek games were banned in 393 AD by the Roman Emperor Theodosius. Now, I want to really quickly touch upon the fact that it was founded again later on. So, what about could have a nice time adverbial here, couldn't I? But I need to be careful when I'm doing this that I don't use language that sounds like a story, because obviously this isn't a story. So I wouldn't say after time had evolved, or as the sun took over from the moon, or anything like that. It needs to be very factual. So when we're doing a time adverbial, we're sticking to those facts. So for example, it might be, you know, over 1,500 years later, or after a period of 1,500 years. I'm going to do them after a, what about 1,500 year gap. Now I'm going to put in a little bit of parentheses there. In 1894, comma, now I can't say his name, Pierre de Coubertin. No, I just need to check let's spell this right. Coubertin. Oh, there you go. Founded the International Olympics Committee. Now, it's known as the IOC. So in brackets, I'm going to put that as parentheses, and I put my full stop afterwards. So the original Greek Games were banned in 393 AD by the Roman Emperor Theodosius. After a 1500-year gap in 1894, Pierre de Coubertin founded the International Olympics Committee. Now, that's fine. I might add a little bit of extra information there actually and say why. What were they going to do? So what were they doing? Well, they were the ones that were going to bring the Olympics back. So I could say something like to bring back the Olympic event, something like that. Or, oh, I tell you what, I'm going to change bring back to revive. Revive the Olympic event. I think that sounds nice. So he founded the International Olympics Committee to revive the Olympic event. Actually, do you know what? Because I say event, Olympic, I'm going to change that to sporting event. There you go. Right. Now, my next bit, it started with, I want to talk about this bit here, don't I? So it was in Athens. So I could say the first modern Olympic Games were held in Athens in 1896 with 241 athletes from 14 countries. It could be as simple as that, my sentence. I'm going to try and make it a little bit more interesting. So I'm going to actually start not with where it was, but with how many people. So I'm going to say starting with 241 athletes. And then I'm going to add in a little bit more information there. So again, a little bit of parentheses from, it was 14, wasn't it? Different countries. Make sure I spell countries right there because it's plural. The Y becomes IES. The first, now this is where I'm going to say that it was in Athens. Modern Olympic Games were held in Athens, capital letter again, in 1896. So starting with 241 athletes from 14 different countries, the first modern Olympic Games were held in Athens in 1896. Yep, I'm quite happy with that one, I think. So I've said now, haven't I? I've hit that first point. There is a couple of sentences there, but that's fine. Now I want to say about the every 4 years in the summer. So I could write a sentence as simple as the Olympics, capital for Olympics, take place every 4 years. In what about the months, or what about the summer months? In the summer months of July and August. Full stop. Oh, I spelled Olympics wrong there. Make sure I spell that correctly. So the Olympics take place every 4 years in the summer months of July and August. That's kind of nice, but I know from my research that the reason they do that is because that's what the Greeks did. Because the Greek games, for those of you that have had a look at the video that we made all about the Greek Olympics, they took place every 4 years in the summer as well. So maybe I could link that sentence back to the ancient Greeks, because we are talking about the origins of the games, and obviously the origins of the modern Olympics comes from the Greek games. So what about the Olympics take place every 4 years in summer months of July and August, just like they did in the ancient Greek times? No, that doesn't sound very good. Let's have a think. So the modern Olympics is inspired by, isn't it? Oh, that's what we could do. We could start with an ED word, inspired by the ancient Greeks, or inspired by our, I know, inspired by the traditions of our ancient ancestors, comma, so now I need to change that to a non-capital. Let's try that. Inspired by the traditions of our ancient ancestors, the Olympics take place every 4 years in the summer months of July and August. Yeah, I think that sounds much nicer. It sounds Very professional, doesn't it? You'd find that in a book somewhere in the library. Now, I love my did you know fact about the Olympiad, and I think this would be a perfect place to drop that in. Now, with a report, you can have, and we'll look at this later in the week, you can have like did you know facts dotted around in little boxes, or you can put them into your paragraph. So let me put it into my paragraph. Let me do, did you know that each 4-year period between the games is known as an Olympiad? Question mark, because it's a question. And then I want to put on there about the Roman numerals and that this would be the 32nd Olympiad. So this means that the 2020 games will be the 32nd. Now I'm going to use my brackets again. So when you're writing an information text, a non-fiction text, we can use parentheses a lot to add in little bits of information. So like we did with the IOC, I'm going to do that with this bit here. So I'm going to put in there in capitals, there you go, my 32 in Roman numerals. So what have I put? This means that the 2020 games will be the 32nd Olympiad since 1896. So since that first game in Athens in 1896. Right, one quick read through. So the original Greek games were banned in 393 AD by the Roman Emperor Theodosius. After a 1500-year gap in 1894, Pierre de Coubertin founded the International Olympics Committee, the IOC, to revive the sporting event. Starting with 241 athletes from 14 different countries, the first modern Olympic Games were held in Athens in 1896. Inspired by the traditions of our ancient ancestors, the Olympics takes place every 4 years in the summer months of July and August. Did you know that each 4-year period between the games is known as an Olympiad? This means that the 2020 games will be the 32nd Olympiad since 1896. Brilliant. I quite like that. Now, I've got one extra thing to put in. So far, this does look like quite a long paragraph, but actually, there's so much you could talk about with this. I mean, we could go on for days. We won't, obviously, but we could. I want to talk about the countries that are taking part. So there are going to be 206 countries. We can see on there, it started with 14. There are 206 in the next one. So what about the Olympics have continued to grow? So the Olympics, because that's what's happened, isn't it, have continued to grow, and the 2020 games will have 206 nations being represented. A bit different as well. Now let me just read that. The Olympics have continued to grow, and the 2020 games have 206 different nations being represented. I mean, it's okay. It gets my point across. I don't like it. I feel like it's a little bit boring, that sentence. So what about, well, why don't we say how long it's been since it's that it's been growing? So what about over the past, what is it, 124 years, comma. So again, a time adverbial, but it's a factual one, not a as the sky was blanketed with darkness. Nothing like that. Not a story. So over the past 124 years, the Olympics have continued to grow, and the 2020 games will have 206 different, but it's not the 2020 games, is it now? So let's add in a relative clause. The 2020 games, which have been postponed to 2021 due to the COVID-19 outbreak, comma, will have 206 different nations represented. So over the past 124 years, the Olympics have continued to grow, and the 2020 Games, which have been postponed to 2021 due to the COVID-19 outbreak, postponed to, sorry, just talking to myself there, which have been postponed to 2021 due to COVID-19 outbreak, will have 206 different nations being represented. Brilliant. Right, I'm going to read through it one more time, just check that I'm happy. So, the original Greek Games were banned in 393 AD by the Roman Emperor Theodosius. After a 1500-year gap, in 1894, Pierre de Coubertin founded the International Olympics Committee to revive the sporting event. Starting with 241 athletes from 14 different countries, the first modern Olympic Games were held in Athens in 1896. Inspired by the traditions of our ancient ancestors, the Olympics takes place every 4 years in the summer months of July and August. Did you know that each 4-year period between the Games is known as an Olympiad? This means that the 2020 Games will be the 32nd Olympiad since 1896. Over the past 124 years, the Olympics have continued to grow, and the 2020 Games, which have been postponed to 2021 due to the COVID-19 outbreak, will have 206 different nations being represented. Yeah, I'm quite happy with that. So, what I'm going to do, I'm going to copy that. I'm going to go back to, where is it, here, my introduction. I don't know why they're all different sizes, make them all the same size. Or I'm going to pop it all in together just there. And there you go. That's my first 2 paragraphs already. For my final draft at the end of the week. So have a go. Off you go. Go and write your paragraph, send them in, show us what you've been up to. Now, the next session we'll be looking at ceremonies and traditions. And if I put it on here, I am already ahead. I did lots of research. So I've made a mind map already, but you might want to go and make one to help you with the next session. So enjoy, and we look forward to seeing your work.